Hey, good evening, Dave and Joe, DNA Sports. Let's talk about basketball. We've talked about baseball travel. Basketball as AAU. It's the scourge of high school coaches. They hate competing with AAU coaches because they have the same complaints that baseball travel coaches with high school coaches. They hate travel coaches because they don't teach them anything. Well, Kevin Garnett on the website For the Win, he was talking with Kevin McHale, ex-Celtic and ex-coach of the Houston Rockets on NBA TV, and he was sounding off on the AAU mentality that exists in today's NBA. And here's his quote. He said, "Our league is now at a point where you have to teach more than anything. AAU has killed our league. Seriously, I hate to even say this, but it's real. From the perspective that these kids are not taught anything. They have intentions and they want things, but the way they see it, it is not how our league works. You earn everything in this league. You're not entitled to anything." Unquote. And then the article goes on and says AAU certainly has its issues, but without a comparable alternative, it will be nearly impossible for top basketball prospects to abandon AAU. Players want to get noticed, and AAU is the quickest route for a young player to grab that attention. He's not the only one that criticizes AAU. Charles Barkley from TNT and TBS called both Dwayne Wade from the Bulls and Draymond Green and the Warriors AAU babies. And you can see sometimes with their petulance that's legitimate criticism. Most often these kids are entitled and they're spoiled, and then when they get to the day-to-day stuff of a team, they're way behind, and especially in NBA, they're not taught. That's Garnett's whole thing.
So what about the AAU basketball makes the day-to-day in that makes it different from a real team setting?
AAU basketball is just like a weekend thing. They play tournaments, and there's a lot of games in the span of a weekend, and it's just one game after another, and it's a bunch of all-stars or in their area playing together and trying to mesh. When you're in high school or even at a really good grammar school, mm-hmm. The day-to-day action, learning an offense, learning a defense, learning each other, and great teams learn, a lot of it's neighborhood stuff too, and guys know each other, they like each other, they play together. I mean, it's a beautiful thing when basketball is played as a team, not with an individual. It's my turn basketball. Well, I'm going to take a shot now. Well, I'm going to do something spectacular now. I'm going to dunk now. I'm going to try to do this now, instead of just, playing as a team. When, I coach high school basketball, and we get these AAU kids in there, and they have such bad habits, and it's just like travel baseball. You have to break them of bad habits right away. I mean, it takes a lot of time. It takes summers and falls before the basketball season just to break them of spring bad habits.
So they're basically just showing up for games. They throw a bunch of kids together, and they're not being taught.
They give them a lot of money. They give them, it's a corrupt business. They give them equipment, bags, shoes, new unis, new warm-ups, and, it's a business.
Yep. I mean, that's kind of, it sounds a lot similar to travel baseball.
It's really similar, and it's like, it's really damaged the quality of basketball in this country. And that's what we see so many foreigners playing NBA basketball. I know a lot of American coaches went over to Europe and taught the Europeans the right way to play. Back at, coaches that grew up in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, they went over there and they taught these kids, and they come over and it's being passed down, and it's good basketball. They know how to play. A guy that just retired, or he's going to retire, Ginobili from Spurs, He played until he was 40. And he learned his basketball in Argentina and Spain and Italy, whatever. And, you know, good players. Dirk Nowitzki, the German player, Mavericks, you know, just a solid, fundamentally sound offensive player. Just those are two examples of just great European players. And, you know, there's, you know, you don't see a lot of that in our game right now. Michael Jordan was a tremendous fundamental player.
So Kevin Garnett's basically saying that these kids...
And Kevin Garnett, he moved here to play at Farragut, and we're in Chicago, for those of you who don't know where we're at. And he played in the public league for a year after being 3 years in South Carolina. And he played in the toughest conference in the country at that time, the Red West of the public league. And I believe he played AAU basketball. I'm pretty sure he played with Ronnie Fields.
It's probably a lot different.
Might have been, but, you know, he wanted to play. He didn't come here to play AAU basketball. He came here to play in the toughest league in the state.
Yeah.
And he didn't go to college. He got drafted right out of Farragut, and that was his intention. So he got drafted 5th overall, 5th, 6th, 7th overall by the Timberwolves. And, you know, he got coached by, we were just talking about, Kevin McHale. He got taught post moves. He didn't know anything. When I saw him play, he was just like taller than everybody else, just shooting jumpers, trying to dunk. And he had to learn. He was like what he's describing. He had to learn everything. And he learned it well. I mean, he was open to coaching. A lot of these AAU players are so entitled, and travel baseball players are so entitled, they're not open to coaching. That's the whole thing. And how do they get open to coaching? You have to have a coaching background, and you have to have credentials. And we go back to certification of coaches. So you need credibility in this business. And to me, AAU basketball has never been credible. It's just a way to play different teams all over the country and get exposure. So you get to play in a Division I school, or you go right to the pros if you think you're that good, and you have an agent that'll sell your wares. Okay.
It seems a matter of perspective when it comes to the basketball and the baseball. Then, I mean, I feel like some of these people, while it is a business, some of them believe they're doing a good thing by putting these teams together. Whereas, what's good, your perspective of putting games together and gathering.
Well, what would you think there's a potential,
or is getting better at the game?
Yeah. What would you think a percentage of good AAU coaches and good travel coaches? I mean, you know, I've seen some AAU basketball games, and, you know, there's really, you know, there's not a lot of plays being called. There's not, you know, hey, pick up a guy. I mean, and when you're really, you know, some guys play zone. I mean, it's, you know, and it's not like, it's not intense defense. When you're in high school, we work on defense every day. And we're having a common goal: winning a conference, winning a regional, winning a sectional, winning a state championship. What are they doing? They're gonna get a trophy? They don't play hard. They play hard when they have to.
Yeah.
They want to be seen. AAU basketball is, they want to be seen. Travel baseball, I don't know what they want. Tell us about what you just were sent by Chicago Fusion, because that's what we've been talking about for 3-4 weeks. The basic problem of this whole travel baseball industry, taking it too seriously. I know it's a business, but it's endemic, you know, so tell us about it.
So yeah, basically I was sent a screenshot of this sponsored, it was like a Facebook sponsored advertisement from Chicago Fusion, the travel baseball program. And they're currently grown to have multiple teams. So other than a 14U, they're having a 12U, and which is where it gets ridiculous, down to a 10U and a 9U. And this was sent to me because I was giving lessons to somebody's child, and she thought it was good to send to me because they're looking for coaches. Whereas, you know, from someone who's unaware of the problems that we see with travel baseball, a 10U and a 9U baseball program, a travel baseball program where, one, we know they're not getting taught on a daily basis. They're showing up to play all these games when they should be showing up to learn the game and then play the game. So now you got kids that don't even know if they want to play baseball. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Maybe they like it now, but maybe some weekends they want to play basketball. So they're showing up, not being taught, and at 9 years old, they're in a travel league. It's ridiculous. Some of these kids are still developing. Some are clumsy, some are athletic, and they're going to be clumsy when they grow up. So that's just some of the thoughts adding to the fact that when we talk about it being a business, I mean, seriously, 9U? Some of these kids are barely learning to swing the bat.
I don't understand. I do understand this, okay? You have to pay to play on these travel teams. Mm-hmm. And not only that, then you go to tournaments every weekend. And so you have, let's say, and this is bizarro world, you have 29U teams playing for a championship. So that's a lot of money, too. So this is a business. So you have, we have a 9U tournament, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's an 8U tournament. And they can't even lift the bat the right way.
Exactly. Let's break it down to this. But like, one, a 9-year-old, their attention span, right? It's not abnormal for a kid to lose attention at 9 years old. When you're coaching 9 years old and they're playing in the dirt, it's supposed to be that way. And then when you talk about a business, you have all these different.
Have you ever talked to 9-year-olds?
Yes, and it's not easy.
I mean,
and so we're definitely not coaching them up properly.
20 words, and they're gone. I mean, you better be direct, and you better talk to them and tell them to pay attention. It's almost like if you don't pay attention, I'm going to send you in the corner because they don't have any attention span except a rare kid.
But you want to bring them to all these games and expect them to play on the weekend.
Yeah, and expect them to play like
instead of teaching them properly.
That must be really great baseball to watch.
Yeah,
the 9U championship game somewhere.
So now, when we go back to the business, though, think about the profit, right? You got all these different age groups this is one program, and then you have multiple programs across the country. So they're paying to play on that program, and then they're paying to use facilities or are making money when they go to these facilities, and they're buying all this stuff from the stands. And just think about the circulation in this travel baseball economy. It really is. Now, the focus is going away from making sure this 9-year-old is learning to hold the bat properly and learning to swing and learning the proper technique in general of throwing, of hitting, instead of just paying, expecting that awesome 4 uniforms, and now they get into high school and they ask, "Where's my shit?"
I'm flabbergasted. I have nothing to say about that. It's just like you're right.
And so, I mean, this definitely meshes in with.
I'm just thinking where both of us were 9-year-old, and I know exactly where I was at, and I didn't want to travel anywhere but South Shore Little League. South Shore Little League, we had games. We had 14 games, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever, in a 4 to 5 week span. We got our uniform, we got our hat, and we were taught. We were taught and taught and taught, and then we had practices before we played, and everybody was terrible. Yep. But you know what? We learned. We learned how to play as a team. We didn't travel to any. We played at one spot, okay? And there was 3 divisions. There was beginner, intermediate, and majors. That's the way it should have been. It was well run.
And I guess just to clarify my stance though on the travel baseball, it's not that I dislike it all around. I do dislike the fact that they're not being taught. They're just showing up to play games. And I do dislike the fact that if you're under 15, I don't think travel baseball is necessary. You don't know what your body type's going to grow into. You don't know if you're going to continue to like baseball, for whatever reason you're playing. Now, if purely you're like telling your parents how much you love baseball and that's really what you want to do, by all means, go ahead and play all the time. That's fine. But if you're being forced or pressured to do this when maybe you want to be, socializing with other friend groups and through other sports or something, that's a whole different story. But I do think travel baseball is a good thing for kids that are starting to be 15, 16, and they're starting to think, well, maybe this is what I really like to do.
If there's good supervision and there's good teaching and coaching, I mean, these kids that are young, they're being coached by maybe good-hearted, well-intended coaches that aren't qualified because of their knowledge factor, and the pitching is unbelievably burned out, and kids are done because there's not that many pitchers at 9 and 10 and 11 and 12. They use the same kids all the time. By the time they get to high school, their arms are shot, basically. And you watch these injuries, and now in basketball. Let's go back to basketball for a second. Derrick Rose and Jabari Parker, they came from the same high school and they came from the same, I believe, travel team. And they blew out their ACLs because those kids never stopped playing. They went from high school to their travel teams. I mean, their AAU teams. They play it at crappy surfaces, and they continue to play and play and play.
Is there any explosion every cut, every time they jump?
Is there any weightlifting or anything done to build up? You need to build up your body. No matter, when you're younger, you can just do like sit-ups and or crunches and planks and build up your core and then build up your legs by just biking or running up hills or something like that. You don't even have to do weights. But when you get older, you should, because you need time to have your muscles, rest and build up again. I mean, they tell major league pitchers, stop throwing for 3 months. Mm-hmm. And yet these kids are throwing. I know our fall season's done in November, and they got these travel coaches make them throw in December, January. They never recover, and that's why they burn their arms out. And then they throw them too much. And in basketball, they just keep it on play and play. There's no rest period.
LeBron James, don't quote me on the exact number, but he's taking care of his body and has trainers and eating all the right food. And obviously he's in the NBA and he has tons of money. But just to emphasize how important it is to take care of your body, he spends some ridiculous amount on just his body, like $6 million or something, because he's planning to be in the NBA for a very, very long time.
Did you see?
But that's how important it is to actually maintain your body.
They showed a picture of him in high school, and he was a rail. He was thin, mm-hmm. And he went right from the high school to pros. I mean, he would have broke down like Jabari Parker or Derrick Rose. I don't know if Derrick Rose did anything. He's a really tightly muscled guy. And they didn't think he had it. Well, you have to build up your knees. That's the first thing, and that's the first thing to go. I mean, Jabari Parker hurt the same knee 2 years in a row, non-contact, just planted his leg. Guy from Indiana last year, he just planted his leg. The leg gave out. He's an AAU guy. Mm-hmm. There's no rest, and there's no chance to build up your muscles around your knee and around your ankles. I mean, there's exercises for that. Michael Jordan, big time weightlifter, but he came in the league as a rail. I mean, his legs were still thin, but they were strong, and he worked. And
going off this need for rest that you're talking about, how many games do you think are won or lost, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, on some dumb mental mistake?
Oh,
right. So why not take that break and spend a little time exhausting your brain about watching the game, learning something, talking to your coaches one-on-one, and learning that part of the game. Because slumps happen to baseball players because their head's not in it. You could have a really good swing and be a 5-tool player, whatever you want to call it, but why are you in a slump? That's all up here.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, there's more than just a physical aspect of any sport. I mean, spend some time and just put your brain to it.
With the mental part of it, okay, in basketball, your body starts breaking down or gets tired. Okay, let's say your knees are hurting, the pressure's being put on you by the defense, or you have to run cuts harder. You start getting tired, and your brain can't process it, and you start making mistakes.
Exactly.
And then that's why you want to wear teams down, because they start making mistakes when they get tired. In baseball, you get tired mentally.
Yep.
Basketball, you get tired physically, which leads to mistakes mentally.
And they're both a product, though, of physically being used, though. You get tired mentally from baseball because you're physically always playing, though.
Okay. Pitching-wise, my arm's tired. Okay. The speed's still there, but my command is off because my arm's starting to get tired because I've overthrown, and you make a mistake because your command's off. The ball's hit out of the ballpark. You start walking people, and then you start having arm problems. Mm-hmm. I mean, because never a rest, okay? And these guys, these travel coaches that make kids throw, it's a sin. They should be reprimanded. And again, there should be a national overseer of that, And again, that certification, you have to be certified in order for coaches to oversee pitching, should be downtime between November and February.
And that's exactly why I say I'm not completely against travel ball. I'm completely against the certain age groups, the fact that they don't teach properly. But that's why when I said, for example, I started playing travel ball at 16, I'm taking what I'm learning from my high school coaches and applying it to competitive baseball in the summer, where I'm facing some D1 athletes or people committing to schools. Kids are throwing 90 miles an hour. So I'm taking what I'm learning and applying it to good baseball. But at 12 years old, you're just listening to whatever any adult is telling you. And so if
But they don't even know what's right or wrong.
Exactly. So if he's telling you the wrong thing and you're listening, or he's telling you to go in and pitch and you're too scared to say you're tired or you don't want to be embarrassed. Whereas at 16 and you're telling me these things like, or if you're going to play travel ball, make sure you're taking it with this mentality. I'm not going to let a coach, at least at 16 from the right guidance in high school, I'm not going to let a coach go ahead and overpitch me or overuse me or tell me to do something wrong at the plate when I know the proper way to hit, or the proper way to at least try to hit. Not that I'd be the best, but that I'm taking the right approach to be better. And that's why I think at like 16 years old, you're getting to the age where you can start to make better judgments. So at that point, playing baseball all summer long like that is a good thing, because you are seeing good competition. But when we talk about these different ages or them just lacking, I mean, even at 16, no matter what age, you should have a good coach. And that I agree on.
Well, how many good coaches are there?
There's not many.
In our area. I mean, I'm not even talking about travel coach. I'm talking about high school.
In general, there's not many.
No, I mean, there's not.
So
it's a tough business to be in when most of the competition isn't very good.
Yep, and that's why baseball in general, whether it's a high school program or a travel program, it could be good. There's always a potential for something to be good.
Do you really think that basketball coaching is any better in the city?
Probably not. They just find, I mean, like you
said, good athletes.
They put together these all-star teams.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen teams. Okay, I've seen teams who say they have great coaches, but then when the talent isn't there, they're lousy. Mm-hmm. Then I've seen coaches with, no matter what they have, bad talent, good talent, or indifferent talent, I mean, just mediocre talent, they put together winning seasons. Just they know how to coach. I mean, there's very few of them, but there's some.
I mean, how many of my...
That's why if you were talking about 16 or 17-year-old kids that, okay, it's okay to play travel ball, you better do your homework and find the right coach to play for. I mean, I'm talking about summer league coaches. I mean, if there's not many good high school coaches, okay, then parents reach out, okay, where's there a good travel coach? Well, there's not many of them either. Exactly. But you better do your homework.
Yep, I agree. That's why I think, like, at least at an older age, you can make some better judgment calls. Not that you're gonna make the best. Well, you're
gonna need help from your.
Exactly.
If you have a good high school coach and they'll steer you in the right directions. They hear the horror stories and they hear also the good stuff. So I mean, you're a high school coach. You probably heard it already. I've heard it for a long time, and I'm trying to think of who is any good. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple, but there's a couple travel coaches that also coach high school that I know are good. And some coaches that have gotten fired from their job from high school that I know are good because just unfortunate, or they left high school and they make the money in travel. They make way more money in travel than they did with a lousy stipend from either the Catholic League or the Public League in Chicago. Mm-hmm. So they make way more money. Again, it's a business. So do you think, really, getting back to the business part of it, that though it's basically immoral for 9 years old and 10 years old to be playing, ridiculous, you think they're going to give it up because they can make so much money in the weekends? Well, we got 32 9U teams. Do you think they're going to give up that money? Mm-hmm. They can just charge whatever the hell they want. I don't even know what they charge, but I know it's not $50. So they're not going to give up that money. Hey, they can. Hey, we got a weekend of 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We make a ton of money here. They're not going to give it up. And now somebody's going to have to make them give it up. I mean, somebody's going to have to make it. Hey, it's illegal to do this. Do something in your house league with 9 and 10-year-olds.
And what about? and I think travel baseball also causes the level of competition to go down because you're paying to play. So if you don't make the better team, you just pay to play on a shittier team. Right? If you can't be the shortstop for this good team, you didn't make the cut, you can just go to this travel team because there's so many and play shortstop there. And so where is the drive for that person to get better? And that's when we go back to like the entitlement.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna pay, and I'm gonna play shortstop. I think that's the thing too.
Well, people have asked me. They've been, we've had a lot of listeners for these podcasts, and one of the question was, "What's your solution to all? What can we do to counteract travel ball and not to abuse our kids physically and tax them so they can't produce when they get older, when they finally start growing and hit puberty?" And it's a tough question to answer. I mean, you have to have a sales pitch, something different than travel ball, something different than AAU ball. And
I think the real question too is
why
did travel baseball start? I mean, because it was park leagues all over, and then all of a sudden everybody left these park leagues.
The answer to that is I don't know.
Exactly, and I think that could be the root of the problem. Like, how did it start? Why did it start? Because
somebody figured out you can make money off 9-year-olds.
Yeah,
and you know what? There's what's T-ball? 5 years old, 6 years old?
Yeah, about that.
Okay, now every park district has a T-ball league, which is the most asinine league of all time because it's not cute. I mean, parents think it's cute, but it's not baseball. It's just basically, it's a sham.
Yeah.
And then there's pitch by the parents. That's what, 7-year-old.
I think the worst part about that, which I coach, you saw me coaching a team. The worst part about that is that you have these adults throwing. And they're throwing to kids that are, obviously really short. And they're lobbing it in there and then eventually calling strikes when the kids don't swing. But the pitches are being lobbed in over these kids' head. So now you're basically creating bad habits from day one, forcing them to swing at stuff over their head. I think it almost would be better to underhand line drives with a stiff wrist, but let them see a ball that travels at a strike for their height. But everyone's coach pitch lobbing it, and it's coming in like this to them. And then you got the catching umpires saying strike. Well, what are they supposed to do with that? They have no idea what a strike zone is now.
There should be no games. I mean, but everybody wants games. I mean, I would rather have a good swing. Mm-hmm. I would rather have prepare myself for. I mean, we weren't allowed to play Little League until this is back in the '60s. We weren't allowed to play Little League until we were 8 years old.
I think I played at 7.
Okay,
seven or 8.
8-year-old. I think this was because this was straight Little League, Williamsport Little League. It's can't play until you're 8 years old. Okay, so we had a great beginners house league. It was great, and then we played at the end of the year. We get to play the Catholic school was right around the area. So, and it was the same thing every year. Nobody traveled anywhere, and then there was all-star players, and we got to play all-stars around. It was a round robin. So that's 3 games. That was it.
Yep.
And it was in the neighborhood, and it was fun. Yeah. We all got psyched up for it.
So, in the Park District, we used to play on this all-star team, the 11th Ward, right?
But the quality of baseball was pretty good, wasn't it?
Yes, and because they picked the best players from that league. So it wasn't like I just got to pay and play short because I was good enough for this team, or if I wasn't, I went to another team. It was I got picked out of my park because I was one of the better players. So now we had the best players, and if you ever wanted to play for that team, you had to get better. You had to work hard.
That's incentive.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't need a gym bag or a hat that was competitive.
And so we went and played against other wards that were also the best kids there.
If you're a competitor, you'd love that. I mean, the juices are flowing. I mean, that's intrinsic stuff. I mean, extrinsic is awards and all that stuff. That's really good intrinsic stuff, which is, hey, competitive juices, incentive, desire to be better.
And that's when I thought it was.
I wanted to be in the all-star team, and you get picked at the end of the year. It said, okay, every team's got an all-star or 2. Even if we didn't play a game, if your name was on that list, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, and that's where I thought it was awesome. I mean, it turned out that me and a bunch of my best friends were on the same team, and it made sense because we were playing baseball together every single day.
Yeah, so we
knew each other. We knew each other like the back of our hands, and we were playing ball every day on our own. We didn't have to pay and get 4 uniforms.
Yeah, and you didn't have to ask mommy and daddy to get us in a league. You just did it yourself, which that's what we did. I think if I would have ever asked my mother and father, could you get us in this league, I know what they would have told me. I said, we got better things to do. That would be the nicest thing they said. Mm-hmm. They said, use your imagination. Go get your friends and organize it yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that was the only thing they ever said. And they said it kind of in just get out of here and just do what you want. I said, okay.
Yep. And going back, I think when I was a freshman in high school, me and my friends, we would organize games against other people. We would organize.
How much fun was that?
Legit 9-inning games, and my older brother would umpire the game.
Yeah.
And we had legit games, or even if we didn't have enough guys, we'd say, all right, well, we don't have right fielders, so right field's out. But we played every day.
Imagination.
On our own, but we weren't getting burnt out because it wasn't so taxing where we played 6 games on a weekend, had to drive 3 hours. Who knows what happened to our sleep. At 9 years old, we didn't have to do that.
I never heard of anybody, and I know you've gone through this, but I've never heard of anybody that played baseball that much. And I've heard from all the pros and everything. We played baseball every day. We threw every day. Therefore, we didn't have sore arms. We built up our arms by throwing a lot. Mm-hmm. And I guess we threw it the right way. But, I went from playing fast pitching to playing ledge off my, our bungalow. We lived in a bungalow. I threw it off the steps there, and I just played ledge by myself. And then I played ledge with my brother, where you just get right next to the steps, and if you hit it on an edge and it goes over his head, it's a home run. Played wiffle ball. My dad threw me rubber balls in the backyard. I played pop up with myself. I did long toss against the school wall. So I'd step back and just go, use your imagination. And I just couldn't get enough of baseball.
And I think just the most important thing.
And that's what the foreign countries are doing right now. I mean, like the Dominicans and the Venezuelans, they play, man. They play and they throw.
I think a big takeaway, though, for just like in America is there should be some diversity with the sports. So if you join a travel team, baseball is in baseball season. In November, they shouldn't have to come to your place and throw every day. They should go play basketball at that time, or football, or whatever, because it's so taxing to specialize. At 12 years old, you're specializing in one sport. This is not your career.
That's a topic that we haven't discussed yet, but that's 100% right. I mean, you get to use different muscles in different
reaction
sports,
times, different perspectives.
I know that before I started playing basketball, I played hockey, and then I played football all fall, and you use different muscles. You get better, flexibility because you use different. You don't get tight, and you have different movements, and become a better athlete. And then you find out what you are. You play 4 different sports. Well, I really like baseball, but I was a better basketball player. Well, you find that out, and plus it's fun. You always look forward to football season in the fall. We played football, and I know you did this too. I played football in the street. I played football in the parks. That's what you did. And then sometimes you play football against guys in other neighborhoods. And
all the time.
That's the way we did it. And we played baseball. We did the same thing. Let's play fast pitching. We can't play fast pitching anymore.
But the reality there, though, is playing those multiple sports, one, it has a good social benefit.
Absolutely.
Because you're meeting different people. And then 2, there is like a difference in the sport. So your reaction time, the way you process things, how you're thinking about stuff. People think football is not a game for the brain, but you are thinking a ton before they call hike, and you have such little time.
Talking about coaching, they said that's the toughest. You need a great football coach to have a great football team.
You have to know
it's so complicated.
There's a ton going on, and you got to know where everyone's supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean that's why there's so many assistant coaches.
And it happens
One coach can't do it. I mean, but you have to have a great coach to play football, and and then basketball. We would play different schools, different parks all the time. It was fun. It was we didn't need travel. We traveled. Okay, we traveled 4 blocks to play another park, or we traveled 3 blocks to play another high school. I mean, another grammar school. So I mean, we were by high school we were well, we were well suited to play anybody because we played different types of kids, and it was all competition. It was like, specialization should be out because guys burn out, get injured, lose interest in the sport, and then when somebody is specialized, it's usually coming from the parent.
Yeah.
You're going to play this, you're going to play this, you're going to play this. Now, I know you played football and baseball in college. That's amazing. And that's what I'm talking about. I played 2 sports. I was asked to play 2 sports in college. I barely played 1. So,
yeah, so I think the biggest takeaways here is, I mean, get out there. If you're a player listening, experiment. If you're a parent, let your kids experiment. I mean, it's not just so little people make it to the pros. That's the reality. So you have to focus on doing things the right way, especially if you're challenged physically in some way. So you got to do things the right way if you want to be the best that you can be. So get out there and experiment. See what's right for you. Don't just think from 10 years old.
See what you're having the most fun playing.
Yeah, exactly. Don't think from 10 years old your kid's going to the MLB.
I know. And why don't you leave your kids alone and have fun?
Exactly.
Your days are done. Why don't you let your kids have fun like we did? Like I'm sure some parents have never had any fun, but I know we have. Mm-hmm. So why don't you just let them have fun? It's their time.
It's usually how it goes. That's usually where the best kids come from.
Absolutely. We got anything else to talk about today?
I think we're good.
Okay, until next time, Dave and Joe signing off from Chicago and DNA Sports.
White Sox.
Go White Sox.